I was asking for.
Go ahead. That was the computer.
And right now, I was thinking, because of yesterday where I live, it did snow, and there was snow on the grass,
Right.
but it started raining, and the rain made all the snow go away.
I was so happy for the rain. When I walked outside, I brought a shovel to church so that I could help get some of the snow off the ground. And when I left the church, because I was here all day at the station, when I went outside, the assumption was that I was going to be walking in all the snow, and let's shovel some of the snow off the sidewalk. There was nothing. It was like it had not even snowed, and I said, wow, thank you, Lord, because I didn't want to call in anybody to shovel necessarily. I didn't want to spend the money, and I didn't want to have to go out with Renee and Pastor Hobbs and shovel snow. So it was just wiped away. And do we have, isn't there another prediction of snow coming up on the weekend? If you know,
they're talking about another storm on its way, yes, but it's probably going to be a short one and go away kind of situation that we've now become accustomed to.
So we shouldn't be expecting any blizzards during the month of March or April at all.
I'm not sure about April, but I haven't heard that there was anything coming in March. And March is when I have my birthday, so I know I pay attention to the dates.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that if we do have any snow, that it will be like the last snow, that by the time I leave the studio, it will melt. The other day when we had, it was very cold outside, one of the coldest days, right?
Right.
And when that happens and there's any snow on the sidewalk or any water, that freezes up, and there's just no way we at the church can get that up unless we have some kind of an ice pick and you're banging the ground. But if you put the snow melt on top of it, and so we put the snow melt on top of it, go into the station, do a couple broadcasts, then by the time we come out, the snow melt begins to break that ice up, and you can just shovel it right into the street or on our property. So again, if this is what winter in Boston is going to feel like and look like, I think I'll stay in Boston and not go south.
Well, I don't even live in Boston anymore, but I certainly come to Boston on a regular basis, and I know what's going on. I know what you're talking about. And in Hull yesterday, when everything melted away because it rained, the whole parking lot was just wet because it had been sprayed with salt.
Yes. Yes.
So that was not a problem for the drivers or the walkers out in the parking lot.
And that's the other thing for you. You don't have to worry at this time in your life of actually driving in the ice and the snow. That's not. You have two concerns that I have. One, you don't have to drive in the snow.
Right.
Two, you don't have to shovel the snow.
Correct.
So for anybody living in Massachusetts who's reached your age, those two things you want off your plate: the driving in the snow and having to shovel the snow, correct?
Correct. And the other thing here where I live in a condo building, the business manager, the person who's in charge of the building, he leaves a shovel and a container with salt in it for us to use if he's not here.
Oh.
So we're as far as I'm concerned, we're taking care of business right here, as well as you are at the church.
Right. Well, everybody's working together. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about Hull, where you live, I live in Hyde Park, and I live at the top of a hill in Hyde
Yes,
Park.
I've been there.
Right, so we're at the top, and there's no major flooding. I mean,
Mhm.
it could flood, even if you were at the top of the crest, it could still flood. But when we haven't experienced any flooding on our property, and I know in Hull, especially because you live close to the water,
The ocean.
the ocean, so there's
Yeah.
been some flooding in your area, correct?
Yes, there can be some flooding if the tide is high and the wind is blowing and the water is being blown off the top and sent across the street to our building, we could have flooding. Yes, we have had flooding occasionally. We
Right.
have not had it this year.
So when you say occasionally, since you've been there, how many serious floods have you experienced since you've lived there?
Well, I've been living in this building 15 years, and I believe that the most serious flooding time when I had to have my car taken away by an expert who knew how to lift the car onto a truck and take it away.
Yeah.
That was only once.
Okay. Well, then you've been spared. You've been spared a lot.
Yeah.
And I see some of the homes. There was some stories I saw about homes on the Cape and homes in other parts of the country that
Mhm.
are very near the water, and
Right.
they're built like on sticks, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
I'm assuming, my assumption is that it's wood, and that begins to rot, and then the house begins to sag a little. And they were talking about the property, the ground was kept going into, it's going into the water, and they said they're
Mhm.
going to have to remove that house because if it stays there much longer, it could actually go into the water. Why anybody would purchase a house with that potential, I don't understand.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of people who have that kind of a house
Yeah,
put those posts under their house. And if something happens to the posts, they put new posts in that are made of steel.
of steel.
Yeah,
But yeah, well, I haven't seen that. I've just seen the wood. And
I'm talking about what I've seen here in Hull.
so when you purchase a home and it's that close to the water, isn't there a person just before you purchase the home? I don't think it's the realtor, but it's an assessor, somebody who will come around and look at the house. They look at the house to see if there's any rodents or any problems like that, to see
Right.
what the condition of the house is. And don't they look at something like that and advise you that this is not an advisable purchase?
They do, and if you haven't applied the exceptionally good posts to lift the house, sometimes they ask you to move out of the house because it's not safe for you to live there.
See, that would bother me. My wife and I, when we were living in Mattapan, I made an intentional decision to move out of Mattapan because I felt that my wife was being exposed to some danger because of the work that I was involved in.
Right.
And one of the newspapers gave out my home address, and so I felt it was time that we move out, and we came to Hyde Park. But in looking for homes, she was looking in Quincy, she was looking in Milton, and I argued and said, I want to stay in Boston. We've looked at it in hindsight and said
Mhm.
that staying in Boston may not have been the most prudent thing for us, that it may have been better to move to a place where there was a better school system, right?
Mhm.
But we looked at a house on Truman Parkway. I don't know if you're familiar with Truman Parkway.
Yes, yes, I have driven on it. Mhm.
Also on the right-hand side, on the way to Hyde Park, there are no houses. It's a walkway. It's like a little
Yeah,
park where you can walk. The left-hand side, there are houses. Some of the houses are sort of down in like a gully, and those could be subject to floods. But there are other houses that are at the top of the not a mountain, I'd say, but just they're just high off the ground. So
it's
my
a hill.
wife
Yeah.
my wife saw a house that
Mhm.
she really liked. She went inside, it looked very nice. But I looked at there was a hill, and we would have to walk up the hill during the winter, or try to drive up the hill in the winter, or drive down the hill. And I said to myself, this is not going to be safe. And to have to shovel the whole walkway, which goes down, Louise, like that,
Yeah.
I said, I wouldn't want to walk up there if I grow old and I'm still here. That wouldn't work. And I convinced her that that was not a good purchase. And I see, people have purchased it. So there are a lot of things you got to look at. For example, there are houses that have stairs, a lot of stairs, Louise, just to get into the front door.
Right.
And I've looked at that with Karen, and I said, even if I was younger, let alone be a senior, who wants to climb 30 stairs just to get into the first door? I don't know who advises people when they purchase these homes, because I see some very things that are not practical for daily living.
I know it. And at the time that you were looking to buy a home, you did not know that your wife, Pastor
Correct.
Karen,
Yeah,
was going to have problems with her body
right,
and end up having 6 different surgeries
right,
and needing to be able to get in and out of the house easily.
right.
She wouldn't have been able to get into a place that you just described with 30
Oh,
steps.
right. But what I don't understand, Louise, is why when people are in the process of purchasing these homes, why aren't they thinking of all aspects of entry and re-entry to the home? But because you couldn't even, some of these homes, you could not even build a handicap ramp up to these
Mhm.
places, it's just impractical. So I'm thankful that we made the decision, because when we purchased the home, I actually wanted to have a house that was stick built, that was built from scratch. I didn't
Right.
want to be in a home that 8 or 9 or 10 different families had lived in. And so we were fortunate to buy a house where they were building new homes, and ours was the third home. And then the other blessing for me was to have many of the people that I went to church with also live in the same development. And
Yes.
you at least have an elevator that can help you get up. Has that elevator ever not worked?
It has not worked occasionally, but we have called the contractor in immediately, and he has come and made a repair of one of the elevators so that we had the ability to travel within the building.
So how many elevators are in your building?
There are two.
All right, so the chances on both of them being down is rare at the same time, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And
We
are they?
always have one operating when there's a problem with electricity in the town or in the building.
Is that because it's operated by a generator?
Yes, we have our own generator
See,
for the operation of the one elevator, as well as half the lights throughout the building in the hallways.
yeah, see, that's smart. So what
Yeah.
would you do today? Now, if you came to your building, and let's say, which is a rarity, that both of your elevators were down, you don't have access to transportation, so what would you do?
I wouldn't want to move into that building.
No, suppose in your present building, if you came home one day and both of the elevators were down, you don't have access to your car, what would you do?
Oh, I would call somebody. I would call one of my sons to come and pick me up and take me to their house.
You say, hey, get in the car. I don't care what you're doing, and pick me up as soon as you can. But don't they have a lounge area where people can go and sit?
Yes, there's a lounge on the first floor.
And
Yeah.
is there a gym area there?
There is a gym, there is a lounge, yes.
So that's an option for you to go into one of those
Right,
places while you wait for them to repair. So you
Right.
know, you're not standing at the elevator breathing in fumes,
oh,
getting
no,
upset.
no, that's never happened. We've always had, we might have had to wait for the elevator, but we've always been able to begin to use the elevator after they've repaired it.
You know, one of the new things that has come our way is you have been broadcasting since 2010. That's a long time.
And prior to that, you and I did broadcasting out of Boston's studio.
Right, downtown Boston. We would drive separately down there and park at the
And that
transportation
was,
building.
I think that was like 8 or 9 years.
It's amazing. We've done a lot of broadcasting together. And so you and I have been on so many different media outlets.
Right.
And we've learned so much. And each media outlet that we were on, there was growth. We grew, learned how to use the phones. We learned how to use them. I remember at EZE, I asked them to put an Ethernet cord into the studio so I can plug it into my computer and go on Facebook. They didn't have any of that, and I began to request that they do this and do that, and they did it, and they really did it. So you and I have been broadcasting for way past, let me see, 2010. Maybe even 8 years earlier or 5 years earlier on BNN.
Right.
We have a presence in the media in Boston. You know that?
Yes, I do, because I know that one time I was out across the street from the church with you when you were doing something at the parking lot.
Okay.
The church was doing something at the parking lot, and a man walked over to me and he said, "Hey lady, what are you doing in my neighborhood?" And I said, "Is this your neighborhood?" And he said, "Yes." And I had forgotten where I met him.
Yeah.
But I had met him inside a prison.
Okay.
And he said, "Why are you in my neighborhood?" And I said, "Because this is where my church is in my neighborhood. Would you like to meet my pastor?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I don't have to meet your pastor. I believe what you say. You were in my joint when I was there doing time. And now you're out here in my neighborhood. I had no idea I was going to run into you when I was released from prison in my old neighborhood."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I had no idea about that either. I don't remember your name, and you don't have to tell me your name because I never passed your name on to anyone, given the fact that I know where I met you."
Right.
And so he said, "That is just amazing. I'm just shocked to see you from where I met to here where I live."
Well, the other thing, when you mentioned the church, we have over the past couple of years, the church has undergone some extensive interior and exterior renovations.
Yes.
And we just received a grant for $300,000 to continue the work. And it's my understanding that we'll soon be sitting down with the architects and the contractors to talk about the changing. I believe we're going to change both of the windows in the front entrance of the church. That's number one. I believe they're going to be doing some work on the doors that are not opening and closing securely. and then some work on the shingles and the rest of the windows in the front. And Renee told me that we received a telephone call from a woman who was interested in coming to the church. And she said that she was very pleased to see the renovations taking place this summer. So you just never know what attracts people. Some things that attract
Right.
people is the how the lawn is cared for, or how Kingsley is planting flowers. You know, people when they walk by, they all have a sense of something catches their eye,
Right.
and makes them say that they would like to find out more about the church. And so the question is, am I looking forward to this next renovations? And in one sense, I'd say yes. In the other, I'll say no. And the reason why I say no is because I end up being the on-site supervisor. So I have to be the first one here and open the door for the contractors, then the last one to go home when they're finally finished, and then back again the next day. And sometimes they work 6 days a week. They come in on Saturday, so that means. So I love the product when it's done, how beautiful it looks, but the actual getting to that point is really draining. It's
Right.
really
Right.
draining. And
I know, and you always offer to be the one to be first at the building.
well, that's just because I don't like being late. I'd rather be 2 hours or 3 hours at a place waiting for them than to have them waiting for me.
Right.
So you are having you're turning 90 years old,
Yeah.
and right, you're turning
Yes,
90
I
years
am.
old. So how does that feel? I mean, I'm so far from 90, I wouldn't know what that felt like.
Well, actually, I don't feel anything. I'm just excited about it because my children are planning to do something on my birthday to celebrate my
Okay.
birthday. But I don't really feel any differently than I did last year or the year before or 10 years ago.
Well, are they gonna take you to an amusement park and put you on a roller coaster to see how you function?
No, I don't think it'll be an amusement park, but I know they're going to take me out to dinner to a nice restaurant.
Do you have a choice on a restaurant?
Well, they've asked me to choose something, but I said, why don't you choose what you like? And my daughter, who lives in New Mexico,
Yes, yeah,
has called me to tell me that she's coming to be here around my birthday.
that's great, great.
I think you met her. She came before. She came and I brought her into the church.
That's good.
Yeah.
90 years old. Did you ever think, I mean, when you think about that, do you think about it and do you like say, okay, thank you, God, or I knew I was going to make 90? Are there any people in your family that have gone past 90?
Yes, there's one aunt that went to 105
Ooh,
on my grandfather's side.
okay,
And then there's another aunt on my grandmother's side that went to 115.
115.
So there's two women, Aunt Celia and Aunt Essie, in two different families that went beyond 90.
Okay,
And I don't really think too much about 90. I just every day thank God for allowing me to wake up, to be able to get myself ready, to take a shower, to get dressed, to do whatever I have to do.
yeah.
Even though I don't go anywhere unless somebody comes and picks me up and takes me and drives me somewhere, like to church.
So how does that feel, not really having your own car? So if I was thinking in terms of giving up my automobile and just not having that mode of transportation, how do you do that? How do you let that freedom go? Because once you let it go, it may not ever come back to you. How do you make that adjustment?
Well, at this moment, I still own the car. I'm still making the payments because my son has the car where he lives in Holliston, which is like 48 miles from where
Yeah.
he lives compared to Hull.
Yeah.
And when he comes to visit me, he drives in my car, and he picks me up in my car when he takes me someplace.
Yeah.
So I'm still experiencing that car, but it's going to happen that I'm going to sell it
Yeah.
at some point
Right.
because I haven't been driving for a long time,
Right.
and I am able to get the ride, and that is who I call, and they pick me up and take me to church on Sunday morning, and then pick me up at church and take me home.
So does the fact that you can call the ride make you feel that although you don't have your own mode of transportation, you still can get around?
Yes, because it's very important to me to be able to come to our church.
Mm-hmm.
I've been coming to our church, as you know, because you and I have known each other the same length of time, which is 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to change the church that I'm going to because I live in a different location
Right.
when I'm still emotionally and spiritually related to our church.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. You know something. I don't know, and I know it happens sometimes when a senior is no longer able to go into an area where her church is or their church is located, or it's dangerous, for you to go into the area because the neighborhood changes and safety is important. So it's hard when, let's say, family members say, well, why don't you come to church with us? And
Mm,
you're walking into an environment that is 100% different from the one that you're used to. There's no Pastor Barbara there. There's no Sister Edna there. How does a person make the personality adjustments and say, I'm going to get to know this new group of people in this new community, in this new church?
well, I've thought about that a couple of moments,
Yeah.
and I have rejected the idea because I knew that if I went to a different church, I wouldn't know all of the people that I know in our church.
Right.
When I come to our church, people come to me, ask me a question. Sometimes a young girl comes to me and asks me to pray for her. She knows I'm a deacon,
Right.
and she asks me to pray for her sometimes, which I do after service. And I can't imagine doing that in a church where I don't know anybody
Yeah.
except the members of my family.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be the same thing for me. I couldn't handle that. I prefer to be in a place where I believe everyone is my brother or sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Edna, I see Edna as my sister. I see Renee is my sister.
Yeah.
I see Saladin as my brother. You're my brother in addition to being my pastor. There's just so much that I have at Dorchester. I don't want to lose it.
Right. And you usually find that seniors are the ones that stay connected to the church,
Yes.
while others find their way. Sometimes they go to a new church environment. It's easier for them to make the adjustment than it is for
Right.
us as seniors. And I often think in terms of when I am no longer coming to Global Ministries Christian Church, where am I going? Because it's for all of my life, I have been on Sundays taking time to worship the Lord in a church. And I think it will be difficult for Karen and I to come back to a church where you've pastored and sit and watch the next knucklehead try to manage the service and interact with people without making comments, without sitting there. Rather than worshiping the Lord, I'll be sitting there saying, why aren't they doing the corporate prayer now? Or why is the pastor preaching so long?
Well,
So,
I'm not sure that you would be doing that. I think that you would appreciate what was going on because they probably would be doing something similar.
well, yeah, never know,
Yeah.
because people, I've always been talking to people at our church about the next pastor who comes in, because there will be another pastor that will eventually
Well,
come
I
in.
can remember going to your former church when you were a teenager,
Right,
before I met you.
yeah,
And I used to listen to Reverend Haynes,
yeah,
and I appreciated the way he presented God's word.
yeah.
And so I could see where you have learned a great deal from him.
Hmm.
And when you are the preacher, you are teaching in the same way that Reverend Haynes was teaching in his church before I met you.
Mm. Well, I've often thought that because he and I were so close, a lot of pastors came out of 12th Baptist Church, and they're all over the world.
Right.
And I've often thought that I was one of the closest pastors to him. I traveled with him, and that I actually, when I'm preaching, although I have my own style,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of his preaching legacy that is still in me that comes out. And that I'm hoping that I'm doing it as unto the Lord, but I'm doing it in such a way that he would be proud, to be able to know that I'm still teaching and proclaiming the word.
Well, I think that happened because I can remember that when he stopped being the pastor in his own church,
Yeah,
and he started coming to our church,
yeah,
he would sit in the back row of our church. I don't know if you remember this, but when we would walk around, drop the money in the basket when there was collection time, and walk around the
altar.
altar. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, by the altar and around another way. I would go and sit next to him
right.
and thank him for coming to my church,
Hmm.
and asking him what he thought about the preaching. And he said, it sounded good to me, Miss Louise. He was very appropriate, and he knew that what you were doing was similar to what he used to do.
And the other thing is that he knew who you were because he used to watch us on BNN.
Yes, I
And,
know.
he said the same thing that Barbara said, at BNN, that what he thought was unique about what we did is that a white woman, a black man who were friends and could talk about anything. He felt
Yeah.
that was a very strong symbol for our
Mhm.
city. Now, you and I were not looking at creating that symbol for our city. We were just interested in having good conversation. But
Mhm.
he said it was a good thing to see, a white woman, a black man being able to talk, have tough discussions, and to
Mhm.
be able to just enjoy each other's company.
Mhm.
Even though I was better than you. I was.
Well, there was a period of time where I helped you with your broadcast in Quincy,
In Quincy, yeah,
and I wasn't on the broadcast. I was just helping you on the broadcast.
yeah.
And
You would
so
show up on Sunday. You would show up on what, Saturdays?
it was a Saturday, yes. I would show up on Saturday, and you would give me an assignment something that needed to be done by me when you were broadcasting in Quincy. But my voice and my face were not seen.
Wasn't there a time when I was broadcasting out of the Taste of Eden restaurant and you still went to the studio to answer the phones while I was at the Taste of Eden?
Yes, yes, yes.
And do you remember a producer who used to control the table there at WEZE? Her last name was Brahm something. Does that ring a bell with you? Brahm.
I don't remember it very well, but I do remember that, not unlike other locations, whenever I was where you were, people were always curious about our friendship.
Okay.
They were always curious about how come you work for him. You know, they couldn't figure out why I was doing something for a Black pastor.
Right.
And I said, because he's my friend, because he's my pastor. I mean, what's the problem?
Right, right.
You have a problem? They said, no, it's just that I'm impressed. You know, they're impressed.
That's amazing.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
With the day when I go home to be with the Lord, I'm going to make sure they have some video of me behind the microphone and you, and I'm hoping that someone's going to pull footage of some of the work that I did in the city on the streets with Georgette Watson when we did Drop a Dime.
Yes, I remember that. I remember when you did that.
And maybe, just maybe, it might be better that I spend some time putting it together myself so that it's there and ready to go. Because when Karen's mother, at her funeral, we had some video that we had taken. Every time we went to visit her, we kept taking video and video. So we were able to put video and photos together and show those while people were sitting during the wake. There's so much technologically you can do now in preparation for that time.
Right.
So I'm gonna get started on mine. We'll save yours until the last day. But mine, it's gonna be mass produced, major producer with music and sound. How's that?
Oh, it sounds good to me, because it sounds like, well, you know why? Because it sounds like something I understand and I remember.
Yeah, right.
It's not going to be something that I will have to try and figure out what you're talking about.
I have a couple pictures of myself. It's a photo of you, David, and myself at BNN. I think someone was taking pictures of us and David slid his way in and then, put his face in the middle so that all three of us could be shot. David enjoyed having us at the studio whenever we came there. He really did.
Yes. Yeah. I know. It's a long time ago, but it was nice. It was nice to remember those things and those people.
So I don't, you do this every week. You just, you take all the time. So I don't have any time to really talk. So it's 10:41. And what else did I want to ask you today? That's a little bit different. You're broadcasting. So it's my understanding that before I even came on the scene, that you were broadcasting with somebody else, right? Or someone taught you how to broadcast? Yes.
I was broadcasting with somebody who was a professional broadcaster who became a pastor in a Roxbury church.
Oh, who is that?
Oh, I've forgotten her name now. Oh my goodness.
We're not talking about Liz Walker.
Yes, Liz Walker.
Oh.
Liz Walker did some broadcasting out of a studio in Alston.
Okay.
And it was on Western Avenue in Alston. And I used to drive over to Western Avenue in Alston and I would take pictures and listen to what she was saying and doing. And sometimes she would ask me to say something. She would ask me to answer a question that she had.
Interesting.
Yes,
Interesting. Do you know the name Lavelle Diet? Does that ring a bell? Lavelle
yes,
Diet?
yeah,
And he also was a broadcaster at WBZ Radio.
right, right,
And he and I became very, very good friends.
right.
And when I started my little broadcasting career, he would meet me at a radio station in Cambridge because I
Mhm.
preached. I think my broadcast was 12 o'clock that night, from
I
12 to
remember
2 or
that
3.
I remember that you went to Cambridge and I did not go with you.
And so he would come. He wouldn't answer the phone, but he would like be a mentor to me. And so as
Mhm,
I broadcast, he would talk to me about how I pronounce certain words.
mhm.
He was giving me ideas on how to attract an audience. And again, broadcasting from 12 to 1, 1 to 2, I don't know if it went to 3 o'clock, but I was so tired while I was broadcasting. So I
Uh-huh.
had to stand up and broadcast. I couldn't sit down.
Mm,
And he would eventually, while I was broadcasting, he would eventually just go to sleep and just sleep in the studio. And then I would take him home
mm,
as soon as I left the studio, because he just liked being out of the house and
mhm.
hanging out with me. We would go out to eat, or we would be broadcasting. So I've had a lot of blessed people in my
Yes,
life and around my life during this journey of broadcasting. And my first broadcast alone was at the Salem Communication, WECE, in 1995.
mm.
And I have a photo of my son Aaron sitting behind the microphone
Oh,
as a little baby sitting behind the microphone with headphones on. I don't think he even knew what he was doing, but it goes all the way back to him being
yeah.
a little child.
And now he's a handsome man.
You know, something, I was talking to him yesterday and I asked him how he felt about coming to church, because it looked like he was having fun with everybody that he was
He was
interacting with.
interacting with a number of people.
Yeah, I just found that to just be amazing. Now,
Mhm.
you know, if he can just become relaxed and absorb, because there's warmth there, there's security there, there's people who truly love him there.
Yes,
There's so many, and that should really be the role of the church, to provide a safe place, provide a community, provide a place for
mhm,
teaching,
mhm.
and to give people a sense of confidence that they're in the right place. And he said he felt all that because he was playing with Edna, he was talking to Lauren, Saladin, he was just playing with everybody. And I said, you
Yeah,
enjoyed
and
yourself.
with Pastor Barbara too.
And
Yeah,
we're Pastor Barbara, right?
yeah,
Yeah. It's good to see our older young people come back
right.
either from college or just come in. Like Soleil is coming into church, and I saw her when I asked people about their spiritual gifts on Sunday. Do you know what it is, or would you like to know? People
Yeah,
did respond. They were responding regarding spiritual gifts. So I hope that that whole series is going to help a lot of people to say, I need to really find out what this is. That was funny. I every Sunday now I turn around and I say, "Where's Louise?" At the end of service, they say, "She's gone. The ride picked her up and she's gone." This Sunday, I went. I was going to go back and talk to you, and I said, "Edna, where is she? She is gone."
yeah.
Did
And
you?
Edna always goes right to the door and makes sure I get out there and
Right.
get the car. Yeah.
So you left before you left before it was time to eat, correct? Or did you
No,
eat?
no, I ate first
Okay.
and then I left.
So what time did they pick you up?
They picked me up at 12, about maybe 12:30.
Oh, so did you extend your time deliberately?
No, it was the time that they said they were coming.
So it's usually around 12:30?
Yes. Mhm.
I thought you were gonna try 12:15.
I said 12:15, but they always came later than that.
Oh, but
Yeah.
it hasn't been like you've been waiting for 5 hours though.
No. Only the first time I waited a long time.
Right, and that was because it was new for them, they couldn't find the place or,
Yeah, it was new and they pulled up in front of the barber shop.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so did we not know that, or did we think they were coming for somebody else if they had pulled up there?
Well, you walked over to the barber shop and asked and spoke to the driver of the ride.
Yeah,
Uh, and he said that he was looking for me, and you said it's back down there at the church.
well, yes, that's right, he had to turn, either he turned it around or he drove all the way around to Wells Avenue and came down. So,
But yeah.
it's great that it's working because you had to sign papers, you had to qualify, you had to
Mhm.
wait. But again, you got it. And I had shared with you that I've been thinking a little bit about it, especially if I give up my car,
Mhm.
that would have to be my mode of transportation to come into the city. And the other thing, when I think in terms of leaving as the pastor is is I right now, if I wanted to have a community meeting or an event, I could always have it here at the church.
Right.
When I give all that up, there'll be no need for me to come into the city because there'll be no gathering. There'll be no places for me to gather with people. Right now, Priscilla and others say that they have to go find places or they go to I didn't know that in the Boston Public Library, you can have meetings in the Boston Public
Yes,
Library,
you can. You
right?
can.
I didn't
Yes.
know that. I didn't know that. And but so that would have to be an option. So, I'm assessing, no, I won't have an office in the city anymore. I won't have a private bathroom in the city anymore. It's just a lot of things you have to think about
Right.
when you make decisions that will alter your life significantly, correct?
Well, I think that you could probably have a similar position at the church that I do.
Which is,
I come on Sundays, I use the bathroom, I have any part of the church that I can be, I'm one, because I don't go downstairs or upstairs anymore.
right, that upstairs would not be healthy for you, climbing,
No,
right?
I'd have trouble walking upstairs
Did you
and
ever think
walking
that day
downstairs.
would come?
What?
When you were in the church office upstairs, did you ever think that day would come when you couldn't walk up those stairs?
Well, uh, this past Sunday, I don't know if you noticed, but the bookkeeper who I hired and sat with
Yeah.
for 9 years sat at the table with me, and we held hands because I was about to be in tears because I missed her.
Oh, and what did she say?
She said she missed me too.
Wow, wow,
But she gave her report to everyone at the church, and then
yeah.
she came and sat down next to me and held my hand.
Did she have anything to eat?
I don't think she did. I don't know if she had anything to eat. I'm not sure.
I find it just so amazing, um, when you think in terms of the number of years that you spend in a place, the years that you spent as the president of the Common Square Neighborhood Council.
Yes, I
You
was,
did,
yeah.
you did that. You look back at your years of working for the state. There's just, it's looking back and the things that you're no longer doing, and either you have to let go and be okay with letting go, or you hold on and life or health forces you to let go. And you don't really want that to happen that way.
Yeah, and I still see a number of people that were in a variety of groups that I was involved with,
Yeah.
and they come over to me and speak to me and sit down with me, just as Stephanie did on Sunday.
Right, right. Well, we're all going through transition, and we're watching our church get older and older, and it seems like it's happened so quickly, Louise. It's not. This is. I know it's been happening over a long period of time.
Mm.
30 years is a long period of time.
30 years, you and I have been friends for 30 years, and I have been coming to the church that you established for 30 years.
Amazing. And so many different pastoral associates and leaders, and so
Yes,
many different leaders, so many different
right.
deacons, and so many
Mhm.
different elders. It's just so much to reflect on here at the church.
Amazing. And I watched your 3 children grow up. They're now all adults.
Yeah, yeah,
And Owari's a beautiful woman. The 2 young men are handsome young men. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing to me.
yeah. Well, it's just something that we all can reflect on with
Yes.
positive thinking, because there are some churches where some very tragic things have happened in those churches, and it has hurt the church or broken the church. And
Mhm.
I want to be able to finish my run with no scandal, with nothing that would mar or
Mhm.
scar people's experience of being here at Global Ministries Christian Church.
Well,
Well,
I think you have a good reputation.
well, Louise, because you've been talking so much and dominating the conversation, you have 3 minutes left before we're off the air. So as I do, since it's your broadcast and I'm your guest, I'll turn the next 2 minutes over to you.
Well, why don't I give you a minute so that you can say something that you would like to say to the people who have been listening and watching and who will be listening and watching in the future.
Okay. You go first, and then I'll
Oh,
hand it up.
well, yeah, because as far as I have mentioned already, they're my brothers and sisters if they come to our church, or if they believe they're related to us. They might just participate in Friday night prayer and not physically come to the church either Friday night or Sunday, but they participate in some way, and they are still my brothers or sisters. And I just love seeing them when I see them,
Right.
including yourself and your wife, Pastor Karen, and your children, of course.
Mhm.
So everything that we've talked about has been pleasant. It has been a pleasant experience that we have shared with people who are watching and listening.
Right, and I'm hoping that when you and I are no longer on this earth, do you know that I play broadcast of people who are no longer with us? They're no longer on this
Uh-huh,
earth,
uh-huh.
and people who are listening don't know, and people really feel blessed by listening to all these people, quite a few, who are no
Mhm.
longer with us. And I guess it happens when you broadcast for over 30 something years. Some people transition to heaven. So I'm thanking all of you for watching us and listening to us. I'm thanking many of you who will be listening to Louise and I many, many years after we're no longer on this earth. So we hope that you enjoy our broadcast while we're here. And I hope that you'll continue to listen to us and be blessed by what it is that God is calling us both to do. Okay, your music is playing, and I have to say goodbye.
Goodbye.